Is it possible to be desireless? No, actually it is not possible. As long as the mind is there, its duty is to desire. It seems to be contradictory, but the secret is that any desire without any personal or selfish motive will never bind you. Why? Because the pure, selfless desire has no expectation whatsoever, so it knows no disappointment, no matter what the result. Many people think that by renouncing everything, by becoming selfless and desireless, there is no enjoyment. No, that is not so. Instead, you become the happiest man or woman. The more you serve, the more happiness you enjoy. Such a person knows the secret of life.
So we're going to continue our study of Patanjali, and we left off last time talking about non-attachment, and we talked about the two greatest tools we have, practice and non-attachment. And we also spoke about, yes, we can practice, we can do sadhana, we can meditate, we can do all those things, but if you do all those things and you're still attached, you're in trouble. So how does non-attachment happen? Can you make it happen? You can speed up the process by understanding the spiritual values. You can speed it up. You can speed up the process by what we call pratyahara. Pratyahara is practicing your sense control. And we finished up by saying last time in Sutra 15, the consciousness of self-mastery in one who is free from craving for objects or what is seen or heard, from one who is free from these cravings, is non-attachment. Okay, so we go into the field of desires, right? And Kelly and I was having a nice conversation here before, and she was saying, it's thanks to Patanjali, I felt like I wanted to control life, and she said, that's all gone now. Isn't that nice to hear? Because this is what drives us crazy. We can practice and practice and practice and practice. But then if we hold on to things that, oh, I want it to happen this way, or I need this to happen before I can find my peace, we are waiting constantly. There can be no peace. So you can practice meditation, but you'll sit down and all those desires will come to you. When you start practicing, what happens when you start meditating more, when you do yamas, niyamas, when you practice the 8 limbs of yoga? Bit by bit, many things leave you. Why? Because as you connect to the higher source, as you find more peace within yourself, when you realize the outside world cannot make you happy. Oh yes, temporary happiness. A partner can make you temporarily happy. But the moment you start to possess that partner or think they belong to you, jealousy comes in, pain comes in, sorrow comes in. So even in a relationship, there has to be absolute freedom. So the yoga study is, okay, how do you develop this freedom if you're living with someone? It's very, very difficult. So when you go within, you start to realize, okay, who am I? Who am I? Who am I really? And this is how I do it all the time. You know, I wake up every morning and I think, you know, today could be my last day. Today could be my last day, which is very real, right? It could be my last day. It couldn't be any of our last days, right? So if today was my last day, and if I was to die, can I take any of this with me? And the answer is always nothing. I can't even take my body. I can't even take a piece of hair. That's my answer. So, okay, why get attached to everything? If things want to come, let them come. If they want to go, let them go. Let them go. Don't hold on to anything, because nothing is mine in the first place. And this practice throughout the years has really helped me. Nothing is mine. I'd like to tell you a story that I heard actually this morning. It was about this donkey who was tied to a field. and he was trying to get out. And suddenly a demon comes up to the donkey and goes, I'm going to set you free. So what does he do? He cuts the string, and the donkey is so excited to be set free that he starts running and going to the next farm, just trampling on all their crops. And so the farmer's daughter, who knows how hard her father works to grow all this, starts panicking. So she takes the gun and she shoots the donkey. Donkey dies. Now the owner of the donkey was running after the donkey, and oh my God, she killed my donkey. How dare you kill my prized animal? That's all I own in life. Takes his gun and kills her. So the mother of the girl comes crying and crying. She gets so upset. So she tells her sons, please go and kill one of their children. So, and so they go and kill the child. So then there are two brothers left in the other household, and the mother says, now I want that whole family to die. Go burn their house. So that night they go and burn the house, not knowing that the father of the house was out. He wasn't in the house. His family was there. So when he saw his house burned down and everything he owned burned down, he was furious, and he said, now I have to take revenge. I have to take revenge, but will this go on forever? Won't this ever stop? And he looked at his mind and he said, you demon, why did you bring these thoughts to us? And the demon appeared, and he said, I didn't do anything. All I did was free the donkey, and your egos did the rest. And that's the truth, right? And in life we get very attached to things because we think, the world owes us a favor. And that's our ego. And that's what we need to let go of, more than anything else. Nobody owes us any favors. Really, nobody does. And this is why I love St. Francis' prayer. Please let us not ask so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand. Because every time we want is a desire. It's not an easy thing, but we can do it. Lord Krishna told Arjuna, I know it's difficult, but not impossible. This is our journey. This is our challenge. This is our way home. This is our only way home. Because any kind of attachment, you see, and as the more spiritual you get, the more attached you get lessons 1, 2, 3, 4, slashing you, so you let everything go. And when you get to a point, well, you know what? I take each day as it comes. I'm grateful. And suddenly everything calms down. Because there was never a demon there. And there was never God punishing us. It was all in here. It was our own ego, our own desires that drive us nuts. But because we don't look there, we suffer. So let us move to Sutra 16 on Book 1. When there is non-thirst for even the gunas, constituents of nature, due to realization of the true self, of Purusha, that is supreme non-attachment. Now, we talked about in 15 the consciousness of self-mastery. We're conscious that now we're getting better with all these practice, we can control some things. Now here, in supreme non-attachment, even those old desires, those old feelings, which are still in you, when they come up, automatically, they disappear very quickly. Why? Because you've developed the understanding that you are Purusha. You have developed the understanding that nature just presents all these things to us, like a theater presents the stage, and for actors to act in it. We are actors, and this is our stage. And so when things happen, you no longer grasp onto them. So the old feelings of anguish or attachments are no longer there. They don't crop up anymore. And this is what it says in the Gita as well. You know, what is an addiction? An addiction is something you can't do without, right? It's something you have to have, whatever the addiction is. And that is a desire. It's a very, very strong desire, whatever the addiction is, to emotion, to substances. Anyway, so the Bhagavad Gita says, longing for those substances will go away only if you keep away from them. Only if you keep away from them for some time, or understand that those things, those desires drive you a little crazy. And every time you satisfy that desire, it doesn't make you happy. It makes you happy for a little while and then you don't like yourself. So, only way you can stop that behavior is by stepping away. This is the practice of pratyahara, controlling your senses. Step back from, your eyes will see something, I really want this. Oh, I've been on this road before. I don't need to go there. Why? Because I'm Purusha. I am spirit. I am much bigger than this. So longing for those things will go away when you step back. You need to step back in the beginning. And the only way you can truly lose any addiction is when you fall in love with the divine within you. Or whatever you want, the God outside, inside, wherever you find your divine energy. It doesn't matter, it's everywhere anyway. So you want to see that divinity in your partner, in your home, in your friend, in the Sangha, in the trees, in the sky. It's all divine anyway. And that's why in the Hindu tradition, we have so many millions of gods and goddesses. Why do we have so many gods and goddesses? Because you can see God in any kind of form. So if you need something that is disturbing you today and I have an obstacle, I really have an obstacle, I need to get through that obstacle. In the Hindu tradition, somebody would see Lord Ganesh. He's supposed to be the God that protects you from obstacles. A Catholic or a Christian will see one of the saints. I know there are lots of saints for lots of things, right? Other people will see their angels to prevent you from obstacles. You use different gods and goddesses to deal with the kind of problem or personality you have. Because the divine is everywhere. It's not limited to one thing or one place. So here, supreme non-attachment is when you start to realize that truth, that divinity is everywhere. So if it's everywhere, it's inside of you. It's inside of me, so I am hoping somebody's going to make me happy or something's going to make me happy, but I need to make myself happy. And this is why when you start to meditate a lot, but like I said, to bring up the bhava, what is bhava? Love. The love. Fill your heart with love. Then you can easily do this. It's very hard sometimes for a jnana yogi. What is a jnana yogi? One who uses the intellect, analyzes, who am I, and think too much, right? Because when you think too much, you come to a point like, okay. And I went through that, so I can tell you, there is nothing. There's no God, there is nothing. But at the same time, there is everything. And then it's like, oh my God, I'm getting really lost in this. And it can be painful journey for a spiritual person, a very painful journey for a spiritual person, until you bring up the bhava of love. And this is why I'm very lucky to have my father, who always said that in just this generation, the only way to find God or that divine inside of you is through love. Is through love. He used to say to me all the time, that's why it's so important to give love. Give love. If you give love, you get love. But just give love. Give love everywhere you go. And that is true. Because if you notice that when you're giving love, how you feel inside, there's a tingling. So that love you also give to the time you spend alone with you. You know, make that time beautiful when you meditate. Make it wonderful. Fill it with love. Visualize somebody you love. We're going to cover this next in the next sutra. And I'll tell you how you can do this. So then when you touch that bhava inside of you, you go, oh, this is so nice. And then you feel the kundalini rising within you. You can feel the energy moving. You can feel it and you can touch it. And then you go, oh, you know, this is just all temporary. I take everything too seriously. I'm not going to do that. So everything goes very quickly. Pain dissolves. And then when the pain dissolves, what happens? New things enter your life because the mind is full of new thoughts now. It's not grasping on to the old attachments. And you keep telling yourself, I don't need to do this anymore. And this is empowerment. This makes you strong and this makes you whole. And the more you practice it, the more whole you become. But this is why in meditation, you have to begin with dharana, which is concentration. Everybody wants to skip it. Let me go straight into meditation. I can be in bliss. Hello. I wish it was that easy. So we have to go through a process and we have to give ourselves time. And in the so that is supreme non-attachment. And what are the gunas? I have a whole talk on gunas on my YouTube channel. So gunas are to do with the earth we live in, manifestations. Prakriti is nature. So we are spirit and nature. And in our body, we are Shakti, which is the force that creates nature, and Shiva. So that's why we say Shakti rise to Shiva through the chakra system, which is our subtle body. It is our subtle body because we have the physical body and then we have our subtle body, which is the astral body. And that astral body is more connected to things that are emotion in you. So when Shakti rises to Shiva, then we experience this bliss within our own body. But it comes from the female energy. It comes from that kind of energy. And when I say female energy, this female energy lives in every male too, as the male energy lives in every female too. The yin and yang, how to balance it. So anyway, the practice, the understanding of the gunas, understanding that we are ruled by three kinds of forces in this world. We call it Satya, the peaceful force, Rajas, the activity, and Tamas, the dull inertia. All nature is controlled by these forces. And he said, supreme, here it's saying, none of these forces can affect you when you are supremely non-attached. Okay? Now, this stage you can't really try and get to by a lot of practice, but life's journey will teach you this. Life will teach you this. And with the study of the sutras and with the study of your mind and contemplating your life, what you want from your life. What do you want? That's the most important question you have to ask yourself. What do I want? And sometimes it's, okay, I just want this to go really well. Is that bad? No, it's not bad. Enjoy it. But no, one day it may not happen. And if one doesn't happen, don't be afraid of it. Something else gonna happen. And that's the lightness, that's the freedom of the practice. It's not that you don't have anything that you still desire things, but you don't latch on to them anymore. You have to have desires, because if you don't have any desires, you might as well close the door and not live, right? So the desires are not a problem. It's the clinging to the desires and the grasping of the desires that create your problems. So know that you are divine, know that you are full of energy, and then everything starts to become very clear. And then you get excited about your sadhana. You want to practice more. Oh my God, I haven't got there. I'm still making all these crazy mistakes. I want to practice more. That gets you excited. That's why every time when you go through a dull period, it's actually really good for you, because when you get back to the good period, you want to get back. You get enthused, you get excited. I can achieve this. I can be free. I'm better now. 10 years ago, I couldn't handle this. 10 years later, I'm really good at handling this. What's there to look forward in the future? A lot. And then you start closing old things that you were attached to. Maybe guilt, maybe fear, maybe anger, maybe something, trauma in your life. One by one, you start having closure and forgiveness with it. And that's what you have to constantly remember. So if you fall, don't worry about it. Just get up and start again. Do your sadhana. I have to do more mantra today. Okay, my mind's going crazy. I'm going to promise myself that, and this is the practice, and this is the sadhana, this is when it takes over. Today I'm going to do 2 hours of mantra chanting. Whatever I'm doing, I'm going. If I'm driving, I'm chanting. If I'm walking, I'm chanting. If I'm cooking, I'm doing the mantra. And guess what? The mind gets strong. It gets strong after 2 hours of doing it. And that's 2 hours. Imagine if you do 10 hours. All the time inside your head. All the nonsense will be gone. That's why Sri Patanjali tells us, to the keen and intent practitioner, this samadhi comes very quickly. So even with a few hours in one day, you notice the difference. Honestly, practicing the mantra is a wonderful practice. And most people let that go. They let that go. It's interesting. Why? So I'd like to read to you something that Gurudev writes here. You can't just go into the mind and erase the impressions, but they get themselves erased at one point. When you succeed in going within and realizing the peace and joy of your own true self. The moment you understand yourself as the true self, you find such peace and bliss that the impressions of the petty enjoyments you experienced before become as ordinary specks of light in front of the brilliant sun. You lose all interest in them permanently. That is the highest non-attachment. It makes it sound so simple, right? And yes, it is. And normally, after 16, I normally jump to book 2, the 8 limbs of yoga. But I'm not going to do that today, because I'm going to go into the samadhis, because many of you have practiced meditation for some time, and I believe many of you on Zoom as well. So what is our goal in yoga? To reach samadhi. What is samadhi? Give me another word for samadhi, anybody? Bliss. Yeah. And self-absorption, they call it. Absorbing into the consciousness. Are we really ready for that? And that's what my master used to say, and I think I've said it so many times. He said, don't allow anybody to raise your kundalini, Nalanie. Dangerous. Dangerous. When you are ready, God will raise it. Why is it dangerous? And he explained, you don't put a 120 plug into a 220 socket. It will burn, it will burn. And that always remained with me. And nowadays when I see people are doing a lot of practices, spirituality is awakening, but I also see that sometimes they're rushing it with substances. Substances that mess with your mind and your body and your nervous system. And it's such a risk. Because if you open that energy, how many people who have had substances have told me, oh, we see all these wonderful things, but then when you come down without the substances, they can't cope with life. How How many have I known in my lifetime that were perfectly okay and because of substances have moved into mental homes? Can I tell them it's Kundalini? They'll think I'm crazy. But I tell you, many people there in mental homes don't need to be on medication. They just played around with their nervous system too much. Just played around with it. So one needs to be very sure of what you want. Of course, we want bliss. So I told myself when I saw all these things at a very young age, I'm very grateful for all these people who came to my life that showed me that's not what I want. I said, it's always safe, like my master said, make peace your God. Just make peace your God. Don't even allow God to disturb that peace. Make peace your God. That's simple. That's achievable. That's doable. So for me, Samadhi is like peace. I don't know if I want to go in a trance-like state for 8 hours and come back and not want to be here, because I may not want to be here if that happens, right? Because if you're totally blissed out, do you want to come back? Don't want to come back. Maybe we're not ready for that. Do you see what I'm saying? I know so many people have gone to these high states, even not on substances, but doing the yoga, and then they can't deal with the earth anymore. They can't deal with life anymore. Because life is not that easy sometimes. Problems come, things come, obstacles come. But because they've experienced so much bliss, then they can't deal with life. So they say, okay, then I want to spend my life alone or go somewhere. But they also can't do that because they're not yet ready for that solitary life. They're not yet ready. So they're lost in between the two worlds. This is why slow and steady wins the race. Do good, be kind, be compassionate. These are the things that help you to get there. You can go into Samadhi just by bhava, love. And then you're protected. Protect yourself, always. So we're going to go into the next one. And here he talks about Samadhi, okay? He says, Samprajñata Samadhi, I'll explain that, distinguished contemplation, is accompanied by reasoning, reflecting, rejoicing, and the pure I amness. So what does this mean? He's talking now about these different stages of getting into this bliss, the different stages. So the first stage, Samprajñata Samadhi, means you get into a state of peace and bliss, but you still have what we call samskaras. Can you say the word? Samskaras. The old feelings and old desires still within you. It's not that you're completely free, but you're quite in control of all these things, which is, I think, even quite nice to be there, right? Quite in control of these things. So he says here, this is the beginning stages. So he describes them by breaking them down. So the first one, reasoning, is called Savitaka Samadhi. Can you say it? Savitaka Samadhi. Now, what is Savitaka Samadhi? He says, first you start off. Don't think you're just going to get there right away. Have some, like I said, plant medicine, get there right away. He said, you start off with focusing on one object. Something that is gross, a gross object, any object you want. It can be flowers, it can be a spiritual figure, it can be the yantra, it can be candle, it can be whatever you want, all right? So here it says you start focusing on this one thing. This is how I started, okay? So first of all, I started meditating on my spiritual master. Why? Because in him, I saw the qualities that I wanted to develop, or that bliss I wanted to develop, or that aura, that way of living, the way of giving, the purity in it. So I could focus on that. So I focused on that in the beginning. And when you focus on an object, let's say, what happens over time? You learn the secrets of that object. You learn the secrets of that object. So what did Einstein do, for example? Einstein learned to split the atom. When he learned to do that, he found the power of Shakti. He said he found God there. And he found that everything is one consciousness. And Einstein found through science what the yogis have been saying. By focusing on one thing, you get to the truth of everything. And what is the process of meditation? It's involution. We are going within to find the higher self. When we discover that, we know the truth of everything. So this is the same thing, but you start by one object and you start to know. And this is what scientists are realizing now. Many scientists are talking about the atom is not where it ends, like Hadameen. There is a wonderful documentary that we saw many, many years ago called The Black Hole. And he explains that it's not just the atoms like Prakriti. We talk about Prakriti, gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, right? It's like the atom, neutrons, protons, and electrons. Right? So he talks about how when you see the atom, we think it's just that, but there's much, 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 much. The atom is never ending, gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It never ends. And when it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And how I understood this was when my master explained, he said, when you turn on the light, right? Let's say you got a dimmer switch and you turn it on and on and on. And when it gets so bright at one point, it's also dark. Has that ever happened to you? Yeah, it's also the darkest point. So, and this is what happens when you go deeper and deeper and deeper. It's like everything just opens up for you. So you start getting deeper by focusing on one thing that will keep your attention there, and you know the secrets. You'll start to know the secrets of that thing. So for me, I started with I said Gurudev, and then candle. It's really easy, and I'd love for you all to do this because this is a really fun exercise. You light a candle, right? And then you stare at the flame. You stare at the flame, you stare at the flame, you stare at the flame. And if you stare long enough, you will see that the rays of the flame, you start to see little rays on the flame. Stare long enough, they go higher. So a little candle that I was meditating on, after looking at it for a few minutes even, I could see the flame, the ray reach up to the ceiling. I never could see that before. So I realized the energy of light. I learned about electricities. Everything is like electric. And I could never see it because I never focused on it before then. So try it at home. Another thing that I try to do to learn as well about energies and things is if you put your finger against a white wall, okay, put your fingers and you squint your eyes, very soon you see the aura around your finger. Against the white wall, you'll see it very clearly. You squint your eyes and you'll see the aura around the finger. And then, on a very sunny day, or cloudy day even, if you stare and stare and stare at the sky, you will see what Paramahansa Yogananda called life trance. You see like little white silver threads everywhere. Any of you seen it? Yeah. It's great fun, right? So you know that there's so much that we don't know. There is so much that we don't see. So when you do Savitaka Samadhi, what happens? So our small world of material world now grows into a bigger dimension of you see things beyond the eyes, the normal vision sees. So there is that dimension, there is that spiritual dimension. It just reinforces your feeling to want to practice spirituality more. There is so much more than what I can see. I missed this all my life, and as you practice more and more, you see more and more. And then he talks about the second type of samadhi, which is called Savichara Samadhi. Now, us, our bodies are gross, then our breath is more subtle, then the mind is even more subtle, our intellect is more subtle, and then finally we touch the bliss sheath, right? So here, Savitaka Samadhi is on the gross, and then we go to the next level, Savichara, on things that you cannot touch but feel. For example, beauty. Beauty is in the eyes of beholder, right? Beauty, what I find beautiful, somebody may not find beautiful, right? So that kind of thing. Color. Yes, we can say that is the color, but as an essence, you can see the color, but you can't really touch the color. So it becomes more, and then these are the more subtle. They're called tanmatras, more subtle. Love. For example, how do you know there is a God? Right? How do you know there is more? And then you answer, how do you know there is not more? So Savichara will be the next one that you get into as you start to learn to focus, and that's why dhyana is so important. Concentration is so important. You start to focus. When you focus, then naturally you get the feeling of the thing, like I got with the light or with the life trance or with the finger. Oh, I saw my aura. Oh, felt my energy in my third eye. You just get there automatically, and this is Savichara Samadhi, and you start to feel the energy of things, the emotion of things. And that is on the subtle elements. You start to focus on the subtle. You start to understand feelings. For me, a lot of my therapy is based on Savichara Samadhi, the essence of the person, rather than the gross, what I see. So maybe I see when somebody walks in, somebody very angry, or somebody, or I can immediately feel that Savichara, it's not the person, it's the mind. It's not the person. I can feel that. And that's through Savichara Samadhi. Or they see their suffering as so gross. And because I'm able to see that as energy, as opposed to a material thing that's causing them pain, I can introduce them to the energy medicine of love to work on that. Do you see what I'm saying? Am I going too deep for you? Oh, okay. So you're working now on energies rather than what you see materially or physically. And that's a great help, because what happens, you really get to understand the essence of the thing rather than just judge it like that. Oh yes, you got a grumpy face. Blah, 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 blah. You start to see, oh my God, you really had a bad childhood. You've really gone through all that. And then you can decide whether you want to be there or not. The decision is yours, you see? It's never anybody's fault, but you can see that. But you understand it too, and then you make the decision, can I live with this or not? There's no guilt in it, there's no judgment in it, it's being practical. You have to know yourself, what you are capable of is too. You can't pretend you're capable of something if you're not capable of it, just to please the world, because you'll be living a lie. And again, you can't live your life beautifully if you're constantly caught in untruths. Just so the world thinks you're a good person, that's the biggest non-attachment. And if you ever worry about what people say, I tell you what I used to always say to everyone, and still do. You know, Lord Jesus, 1 week before, the people said, Hosanna in the highest. 1 week later, crucify him. If they did it to somebody like Lord Jesus, what will they do to me? Don't worry about it. Really, don't worry about it. We're all human. Please understand this. When we come to earth, we make mistakes. I'm sure Lord Jesus made mistakes. I'm sure my master made mistakes. We're just human. It's a big risk they come, these great souls, onto the human body to teach us so that we can just live a peaceful life. Just live a peaceful life. So this is Savichara Samadhi, the second stage of going deep within. And the third stage is Sa-ananda Samadhi. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm feeling the bliss of the third eye, or the bliss of having this vision. And many people are getting lovely visions. I mean, isn't it quite amazing? And many people are taking photographs and seeing orbs everywhere today. So, nowadays I am getting a lot of this from people. It's almost like because the world is becoming more gross, more materialistic again, it's turning that way, more separation again. I don't know what the governments are doing. There's so much, everything is going on. So there's a lot of separation. At the same time, there are a lot of spiritual visions for us who are on this path to have faith and not give up. Just don't give up. Have faith. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in these visions. So it's really quite cool. I thought I had to tell you that. So, Savichara, the essence of something, has now become gross in Savitaka. You can actually see it. And through the Savitaka, you get the essence of the Savichara, the feeling of it. Are you understanding it now? A little bit?